Hey. Well, thank you. Hey, look, there's your people. Your people over there. Yeah, you don't care. But I do. Hi, everybody. It's Robert Earl out here at the Eco Ranch in Far West Texas, minus my hat, and you can see a problem. I was attacked about 4 days ago by an extremely vicious and angry 2x4, and it caught me a big one right here in the head, so that's got to heal up. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about, although be safe, because otherwise you get conked in the head, or worse. And out here, worse is far worse. Like the lead-in says, going to talk about microgreens, electrical issues, and water issues in this little vlog update. So, since we're sitting right here by the new microgreen / growing station, let's start there. So everybody and their Aunt Clara's got videos out about microgreens, and I'm not going to get too deep into it, but as I was starting to set up what I'm going to do here, I caught myself doing a couple things that I wanted to pass on to you. So you want to learn about microgreens. There's a lot of people that have had a lot of success. This is new. I'm just starting it. So don't look to me as a definitive source. But as a definitive source for repurposing, recycling, reusing, sustainability, and a one-planet lifestyle, hey, look here. Because what we don't know, we're trying to learn, and what nobody knows, we're trying to teach. So I was setting this up. Now, I was given all this stuff. You'll notice these trays have the holes in them. They're not the solid 1020s that everybody talks about. So, how do you use them? Well, we order stuff from Walmart.com, and lately Walmart is slowly getting a little bit more intelligent about things. They still send me, if I order 53 things, I get 51 packages, so they've still got a ways to go. But when they package stuff, they're either using that inflated little baggy things that they have, or they're using this paper. Now we're recycling this paper in several different ways. One of the things out here, and I've gotten into it in other videos, I won't get into it too deep here, but we don't put toilet paper or anything other than human waste down into our black water system, our septic system. So we do wrap up the used toilet paper in paper, throw it away. Well, these things are in little 8-inch sections, ideal for wrapping that up. So that's one use for these. But another use for these is this. I've got these trays. They need to be able to hold some kind of water, so I cut one of these to shape. Now, I also just took out of here, we've had for the last, I think 8 months, maybe longer, we've had either chickens or ducks in this little room that I built. Now this isn't a permanent room, but for now it can stay because it had the chickens and ducks in it. They've all been released and they're out now running around, all 45 ducks, which is marvelous for us. So I said, well, I'll turn this into a microgreen area, because what I have to do is I have to keep the chickens and the ducks from eating or just destroying everything. So by putting them in, putting the plants in here, that protects them. Same thing I've done with our, in fact I'll show you at the end of this video, but it's the same thing I've done with our water vegetable garden. But at any rate, I cleaned it all out. And I had about that much of assorted duck and chicken composted poop, for lack of a better term, or actually for not wanting to use a better term. I had that. So I took it and just like I do with the dirt out here, I screened it all through and I came up with this absolutely gorgeous potting soil. Now there are some small rocks in it, and all I'm doing is just taking that paper and putting this little bit of potting soil on here, smoothing it out. I'm going to put my seeds in that. A little bit of other potting soil on top of it, and then I'll show you what else I'm doing, but I didn't have the rest of it ready, so we're going to do a cut right here, and I'll get back to you. Alright, so I'll bring you a little closer so you can get a look at what I've got going. Again, I'm not trying to tell anybody or give you a demonstration on how to grow microgreens because I'm new to it and I don't know. You know, many years ago I had a friend that was who was a seminarian, at St. Mary's Seminary in Livonia, Michigan. And it was either him or one of the priests there that had told me this saying that stuck in my mind for my entire life. He said, there is no one, no, he didn't say that. He said, there's no one more evangelical than the recently converted. Think about that. Now he was applying it, of course, to religion, but I apply it to everything. So these people that say, oh boy, microgreens, and they grow a little jar of it, and they go, all right, now I'm going to do a video. And they tell you in the video, well, I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but here's how you do this, 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 and this. I try to avoid that in everything I do out here. I specifically avoided it with the moringa trees. Now we've got some great experience with moringa. But the microgreens are something new. So mainly what I'm telling you here is how I'm repurposing things. Like the Walmart paper, like these trays, there we go, that had the holes in them that were unusable, but now because I can put the paper in them, I'm also going to do the same thing here. You can see I'm ready. I've got some turned upside down to cover this with that are weighted down with, or rather have a piece of paper on them, and they're weighted down with 5 rocks. Not 3 seashells, 5 rocks, not 3 seashells. Now if you know the reference, if you know what that reference means, write it in the comments to me. And also, if you don't know what it means and somebody writes it in the comments, read it, then go watch that movie. That's one of the most prophetic movies I've ever seen in my life. Violent as hell, bad language, but anyway, 5 rocks, not 3 seashells. So we're going to wet this all down, cover it up, put it in there, open it up twice a day and check on it. Try to avoid getting any mold. Mold was an issue I had in my first start. This is my second start. So I'm going to get this all ready and put it up. Now, just real briefly, I put them under here, and I'll just move them up in the shelves as as time goes by. We have a microgreen mix of cabbage and radish and something else that I can't remember. We have a butter crunch lettuce, which we love butter crunch, and the problem here is in the summertime or anywhere where there's a lot of heat, the lettuce will bolt or it'll go bitter on you. And we have kale, which I understand is difficult, but I really don't understand why it's difficult to grow with microgreens. Now, I've got these little sticks, like this one down here, that I've made. I had to do some trimming on 2x4s for the carpentry, and so I was left with the edge of a 2x4, that 1.5 inch wide by 1/4 inch piece that I cut off. Makes a perfect little stake. So again, reuse, recycle, repurpose. And this is a good thing for you guys that do get failures with your microgreens. Not all of these, those 2 on the end didn't, but these others got moldy, and of course you got to throw them out when they're moldy. Or you repot them, which is what I did, and see what'll grow, and what'll grow up beyond microgreen stage to a stage where it's edible. So that's what I've done here. That's our attempt at microgreenery. That's what I've done the last couple days. I put quite a bit of money for me into this, about $70, $75 between getting plant food seeds, potting soil, and a couple pair of scissors that I needed because we didn't have decent scissors. But let's move on, because we had a real problem with our electric system that, I hate to give trolls food, but they've got to eat, I guess. So the trolls will jump on this, as will some well-meaning folks, and that's fine. But I want to show you the problem, the issues we had, and how I'm temporarily fixing it until we actually move the whole electric system. So let's go to that. So here we are in the power room. And there is a video, an early video I did about the power room, and it shows all sorts of equipment in here, and it was done rather neatly and nicely. Well, that was back when I was badly injured, and I kept getting about every quarter, I'd get a check for $10,000, $12,000. And I was talking to, gosh, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, at Coleman Air. Who is where I buy all my electronics for the solar system, Coleman Air in Coleman, Texas. And he said, well, if money's not really an object, I recommend you do this, this, and this. Well, money wasn't really an object, and I did it. It didn't work for me. It would have worked perfectly the way for him, but it didn't work for me for a variety of reasons, and I've slowly stripped all that away. Now, we had an issue, and I'm going to get behind the camera and show you that issue. So one thing we did do is I had all of our solar panels, I really went into overkill. I used number 6 or 8 wire, and I kind of varied it a little bit, coming 2 wires from every solar panel into these junction boxes. There are 10 junction boxes here. They had 6 spaces in them. So the wires came from each solar panel into here, combined. Then initially they dropped down to a charge controller that was mounted here. Then you drop down to an amp meter that was here, and then they dropped down to the bus bar that I'm going to show you in a minute. Well, charge controllers didn't work right for me. I didn't like the idea of interrupting the whole thing for the amp meters, which I didn't need anyway. And I don't need individual charge controllers because we have one big one here, but we don't even use it as a charge controller. We use it as a diverter. So it diverts when the power here gets to 14.9. It turns on like so. Hello, turn on. There. You heard the click. And it dumps power. Now what's it dumping power into? Well, it sends a signal to this gigantic 660 amp relay. There, it turned off because it didn't need to be on. To this relay. This relay turns on and then sends the power to the 2 water heaters. Each water heater has a 600 watt 12 volt heating element in it. So there's 100 gallons of water and 2 elements totaling 2400 watts. That takes care of all our excess power. So I didn't need the charge controllers and the amp meters. So Debbie came to me a couple of days ago and she said, I smell something hot. Well, it's not unusual. Debbie's nose is really a good nose and you really don't want to doubt it. But I couldn't find anything. It didn't occur to me to come in here. She said, I smell something. It smells like baking bread. So I'm out there in the kitchen looking all around. Well, anyway, she came in the power room and she found it. And what had happened was, going down to the bottom bus bar, which is the negative bus bar here, this is not copper. This is brass. It's a solid brass bus bar. And everything hooks up to it. These are the negatives from the combiners for the solar panels, the inverters, etc. Everything hooks up there. Well, I had the same thing on the upper one. And what had happened with the upper one is some of these had just come loose. I don't know how or why, but the ones that came loose were the ones going to the battery. That meant that the power, that it wasn't getting full contact. Anyway, full contact, resistance equals heat. The heat heated up and it backed up. The heat came through the wires for the solar panels. It came down to the bus bar, and they were all combined and jammed into one spot because I thought that was best. And the heat built up and they melted, and we were within 2 or 3 days of a fire. So now what do I do? Because this is going to be moved later this winter. Plus I have to solve the issue with the brass bus bar. Well, someone told me a long time ago, and I want to give credit to it. I think it was Jeff Harmon's son Wyatt who told me this, that I didn't know. That electricity travels on the outside of a wire, not on the inside. So that's why you use stranded wire with the 12 volt stuff, because you've got all those strands and the electricity travels on the outside. So I thought, okay, well, let's see what we can do. So I cut off all the eye connectors I had, stripped a big piece of number 6 wire, and wrapped it, as you can see, around and around and around and around and around, and jumped it over so that it hits the batteries and the inverters. Then on top of that, I took, and since the eyes were gone and I didn't want to put new ones on, because we're within 3 months of moving this whole system. So I just wrapped it around, tightened it up with pliers. These are all good and tight, just as tight as they would be. And crossed my fingers. Well, sure enough, that resistance was the source of our heat, and we solved it. There is some heat still, but it just goes to show you that you can try to do everything correctly, and sometimes it doesn't cooperate. On to the water problem now. This is another one. Well, it's the middle of monsoon season out here. We've had a bit more rain than normal. The humidity has just been horrendous for the desert. Now, you guys are going to laugh when I say this, but we're having a lot of days with 40% humidity. Yeah, I know. I lived in Florida, believe me. I know what humidity is. But I also lived in Houston. But The humidity coupled with the rain brought up the situation we have every year anyway, rain or no rain, and that's that the ants decided to, I don't know what they do, but they swarm up and they get into everything. They were all through the kitchen, and they were somewhere where we didn't expect them. And Debbie came to me and told me this, and I'm going to show you. The water pump was inside the building, and I've never liked it inside the building because if I ever have to do any work to it, it throws water all over the floor and it gets in the building. I'm sorry, I paused there for a moment because I see a very, very slight drip that I'll have to fix in a couple days. I didn't realize that, and that's an issue that this pump gives me. This pump is very difficult to get 100% sealed, and that's like a drip every 20 seconds, which I can live with. But anyway, ants were everywhere. Well, Debbie, the pump wasn't turning on. This little dealie right here was not allowing the pump to turn on. This little dealie is the pressure switch, and and it's been doing this as long as we've had it. So we have to get in there. We've got a wooden stick. We just poke it down like that. It makes contact and locks, and then when the pressure gets up, it goes boink like that. Now it's still working okay, but what happened was Debbie poked at it, and she said that she thought she saw 1,000,000 ants come pouring out of the thing. The ants were completely covering the contacts, and when they cleared out enough that they were able to make contact, the ants, of course, they lit on fire and cooked, and it burned one of the contacts. Long story short, the electrical contacts burned out on this. I had to order a new one, so I had to take the whole thing apart, moved it outside. That's why I see a little leak that I'm going to address, and I had to order a new one of these. Just goes to show you that you can think you have everything under control, and you know, like everybody says, crap happens and worse. So thought I'd show you that. That leak's going to bother me, so I'm going to go ahead and fix that right away, and we'll move on to the last things. Well, the last thing in this vlog is I mentioned the water vegetable garden. Again, I had to erect a cage to keep the poultry out. They had completely killed back all the turmeric that I had. This is growing up in the last 2 weeks from where those chickens kept eating it down to nothing. So I've got turmeric finally. But the thing I wanted to show you is my water vegetable garden. Those lily pads you see are actually water lotus. Lotus, of course, the leaves go above the water surface. Lilies stay on. Now these are very young, so they haven't got the root system down to be able to rise up. They seem to be struggling a little bit, and I really don't know why, but they are growing. This one here is quite healthy. The one over there isn't quite as healthy. And in the very center, we have, and I've mentioned it in another video, Kang Kong or Ong Choi or Chinese water spinach. I gotta tell you, it's absolutely delicious, and it's stir fry. It's doing very well here and growing well. I've got 2 batches of it. In fact, I'll show you the other batch in a moment. Japanese Mizuna that I'm not sure you can see through the chicken wire, but Japanese Mizuna back there. We're not microgreening that. We're growing it up into a plant. It's almost harvestable now. It's a lettuce. Kind of in the order of arugula. Chives in front of that, and some giant amaranth growing behind that, just because I wanted to grow a couple amaranth. They won't get to be giant, not being planted the 1st of August. In here, the water spinach is quite a bit younger than what's in that other container. But the thing I wanted to show off or showcase is the water chestnuts. They are doing fantastic. They're growing. Only 4 survived. I was shipped 9, but only 4 survived. This has to be kept very, very wet, which the Ong Choi loves and the water chestnuts love as well. Those are doing quite well. So, which brings up a point I wanted to make and forgot talking about the other vegetables. So we'll end the video and get you on the tripod. Now some of you might want to comment that, hey, you're not doing the microgreens quite right. The trolls might even say it a little differently than that. Well, the point that I wanted to bring up that I forgot over here was, I keep telling people, and I don't know whether I read it somewhere or whether I made this saying up myself, but if you fight the desert, you're doomed to fail. It's going to win every time if you fight it. So you have to embrace the desert. And when I say embrace the desert, what we do here when we're growing anything, because we've had gardens on and off since we moved here 8 years ago. and we've had moderate success with them. But the one thing we learned about gardens or growing anything out here in the desert is it doesn't, if it's supposed to grow this big, normally it's only going to grow this big. But the flavor, the taste is going to be incredibly intense compared to what it would be somewhere else. Now, we'll find out when I start growing hydroponically if that's going to pan out in the hydroponics. But at least in the stuff growing in soil and in the open air here, that's the case. So in order to embrace that and maybe get a different, better flavor on the microgreens, that's why I put them in that room there. And I'm doing them the way I'm doing them. And if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, there's nothing really lost. But that was what I wanted to say. Rather than fight the desert to try to get a normal product, like the people with the greenhouses and the fans and the dehumidifiers or the humidifiers and all that crap do, I'm trying to develop the desert taste, the Chihuahuan desert flavor that I like and that we all love around here in all of our vegetables and that. We'll see what happens. And I'll keep you guys posted. And that'll end this vlog for the 20th of August. That's the vlog for the 20th of August. I'll see you guys soon again with something else. Who the hell knows what it's going to be. Until then, it's Robert Earl at the Eco Ranch out here in far west Texas. Still inviting you to come and do a farm stay with us. We'll see you guys later.